I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is, what's it called?
Strawberry Gashes Jack Off Jill.
Okay.
For Daniel. What are you getting us into, Daniel?
Yeah, very interesting song title. Speaking of songs, Sori and I are in a band with a couple members of our village. Shout out to our bandmates. Gang, gang. If you want to hear the first 40 seconds of that, the $5 tier at Patreon. If you want to be there when we actually debut the music video, because we're actually going to do a music video. It's going to be very tricky because we're going to have people from Austria and
we're going to try to make it look like we're right there.
And Arizona and Maine, so hopefully we can pull that off in a non-cheesy fashion. We're going to do a watch party when we debut the video on Patreon itself. So there's multiple perks for being on Patreon. So $1 at the gate gets you in, and then you get recruited by an alliance leader, and then you combine your points together in terms of the song we do. Now, if you're a filthy capitalist like Sori, and you want to use your capital and privilege to hop, skip, and jump in front of the line, then you could do what the big homie did. You do that at 125. You do that 3 times, it gets back bumped down at $75 rate, and I'm pretty sure that's where Daniel is. And right. With that, Strawberry Gashes, let's go.
Here we go.
So
believe that this person killed himself?
I don't think so. I think this...
Turn her over, a candle is lit, I see through her. Blow it out and save all her ashes for me.
It's possible. It's possible the beginning is really the end of the song. Or the end of the...
that's what I thought.
Character. Well, no. It could be. You're probably right.
Curse me, sold her. The poison that runs its course through her. Pale white skin with strawberry gashes all over, all over.
What do you think the song's about?
Well, I kind of got the feeling that there was somebody that... Well, first I didn't know. First of all, what is a hex? Again?
That's a curse, basically.
Okay, that's what I thought. It said hex
spell.
me, told her. It was a little bit confusing because I couldn't tell when the person was talking about themselves or if they were talking about somebody else. But it seemed like it says, watch me fault her. You're living like a disaster. She said, kill me faster with strawberry gashes all over. It seems to me that there's somebody that is not doing good. Probably the person that I think is dead at the beginning of the song. And then that person is like, it would be like, let's say you were like that. Let's say you're the person that was dead at the beginning of the song. And then I say, watch me falter. Like, let me blame you for the situation that you're in because you're not doing so well. And I tell you, you're living like a disaster. And then you respond with, well, kill me faster with strawberry gashes all over. Like, you want me to kill you because you don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
Called her over and asked her if she was improving. She said, feels fine. It's wonderful, wonderful here. So I didn't know at that point if, like, the first girl gave something to the second one to help her to feel better, or if the second girl, the one that ends up, I think, dying, if the second one was just kind of saying, oh, it feels fine.
My interpretation of the song is a little bit complex.
Go ahead.
So I think she's the girl.
So this whole thing's about her?
No, I think she's the girl and she's writing from the perspective of her mother. So I think it's autobiographical, but she's incarnating as the mother here.
So save all her ashes for me, it's the mother?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it says, curse me, sold her, the poison that runs its course through her pale white skin with strawberry gashes all over. I interpreted that line, strawberry gashes, to be about the death of innocence / a suicide attempt, successful or otherwise. Because you know, little girls, like they like the strawberry things, like strawberry strawberry pastel stuff or strawberry stickers or whatever. Like girls just like, Candyland or strawberry this, strawberry that. So strawberry gashes to me is like the end of her innocence.
Used to be a doll, strawberry shortcake.
Yeah, like so strawberry gashes is like the end of that innocence, While at the same time, if she cut herself or slit her wrist or whatever, then it would be red. Hence strawberry gashes. So I think it's probably a double entendre. But when it says, watch me fault her, you're living like a disaster. I think that's one of those family systems where there's like, because we knew a particular family where there was like obvious abuse happening, and then you had the younger sister speak out against it, and then the older sister went and completely assassinated her character and all that because she wasn't, staying quiet about it. And those families tend to demonize the other person to the point where, you're almost guaranteed that your 20s are going to be a disaster if that happens to you and you're raised in that type of family system. But then the family then looks at the destructive lifestyle or whatever as that person's fault.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, we created the situation that made her
in that situation.
Make her life a mess, right? And
we saw that multiple times.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, she's talking about herself, but then she's, in the song, she's incarnating as the mother talking about herself and how they treated her. Like the watch me fault her one. And then there was another one that really made me, I like quiet waiting for her voice to say, some things you lose, some things you give away, which obviously has maybe a sexual connotation to it, where you either lose your virginity or you give it away. It's a very strange sort of phrase in our lexicon where it's like, I lost my virginity at this age, that age, like something was taken from you, even though it's not it's not even necessarily like in a sexual assault context.
Yeah.
A lot of girls just use that phrase as if like it was like something taken from you or whatever. So when
I think the reason that is because I think there are very few women that I have talked to, or girls, that have felt that their sexual experiences were like good and kind, where the person wasn't taking from them. And so I think that even if, you can do all the right things and kind of put yourself in the right situation, but at the end it feels like something was lost, and there's something sad about that feeling. I think that, when you're in a relationship, that it's a loving relationship and sexuality is being brought up in like a good context, then I think that it's different, and I think that type of person has something different to say about it. But I think those things are so few and far between, and honestly, I think that they're going to get fewer and farther between because of pornography and the effect that pornography has on the male and the female minds. But specifically, because I'm coming from a female angle, I'm going to say, he sees certain things and then he's trying to act those things out, and so it's not about him and her and them finding each other. It's about him finding a way to get her in the situation of the hottest video he saw. So
yeah,
again, that's going to affect how she interprets that.
I don't agree that those experiences are few and far between.
Have you... See, I've had bunches of conversations with bunches of different women and girls, and...
Well, I mean, how many of those were outside of your evangelical bubble?
Well, they were kind of all around. Like, it was what we were doing with that ministry.
Well, you can't count that ministry. 90% of those girls have been sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
So you can't count them. I mean, that's a pretty biased control group. And your evangelical context was pretty toxic as far as sexuality goes. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think that that's the majority report for most women as far as that goes.
Oh, I disagree with you.
I mean, so yeah, you just have to recognize that you haven't really been exposed to a large cross section of people. Right?
I mean, you've met a lot of women that have said that they had good, positive first-time experiences.
Hmm? I have.
I don't know when you would be having these conversations. It's kind of weird, but
carry on. Me a lot of things. Yeah.
Carry on.
But the reason I'm harping on that is to make the distinction that evangelical sexuality is not healthy. Mm-hmm. So it's and there's not a lot of teaching about healthy sexuality in the evangelical context. So I'm just saying, like, you've got to recognize that, because you've got two girls, right? So what are you going to tell them? Oh, this is the first experience for everyone. It's going to be horrible. No. I just don't think that. And like I said, I don't think that's true. Although I don't really think that that's what they're talking about here. I think it's talking about the dynamic of some things you lose, some things you just give away, which is, I think the emphasis is probably more on the giveaway part, which is basically a way to say you're a whore. You're running around with all these guys. You're giving them away. You're giving away your virginity. It's not like you're in a situation where you have a long-term relationship with a boyfriend who takes your virginity, it's not like you lost your virginity. You're giving your body away. You're giving yourself away, mm-hmm. which is, again, to me, more victim blaming, because there's an obvious connect between promiscuous behavior and childhood sexual trauma. That's just a fact. And so I think this is more of the victim blaming, where the mother is just saying, some things you lose, which is how you should be, but other things you give away, and you're a person who gives away your body, and so and that's why it's victim blaming from the beginning of the song.
We failed her.
Right. So now this is a refrain that I think she wished her mother would have said. Scold me, failed her, if only I held on tighter to her. So I think she would love to hear this from her mother, where it was like, if I had just held on any tighter, kept a closer eye on you, yada yada yada, this wouldn't have happened.
Good God.
And I think that's what she wishes her mother would have said. Because the thing with kids, and unfortunately we've witnessed this firsthand, is kids are very, very forgiving to their parents, mm-hmm. because because they're your parents. And so it doesn't, if you're a parent who's like really hurt your kid or didn't come through for your kid, like there isn't a lot that the kid is asking for. Like it's just acknowledge it and apologize so we can have some sort of relationship.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so she doesn't say I'm a failure at all until the bottom third of the song. Right? Like the whole other point is blaming her. You know, watch me falter, you're living like a disaster, yeah, you're giving it away. And so she finally figured out, like, this was my fault. Then, watch me lose her, it's almost like losing myself, which is another reason I perceive it to be a mother-daughter relationship. Because of the, you know, like you and Selah, for example, right? Like, she's obviously a little you know what I mean? Give her my soul and then let them take somebody else get away from me. So maybe her daughter's soul is so jacked up now because of what she went through that she's like, if I could trade, and then that's a very interesting line, you know, because a lot of times people say if I could trade places with the person, and it's usually talking about bodily injury. You know, your buddy gets shot. Oh, I took a bullet for blah 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 blah. So. But she knows that it's not a physical malady that's bothering her daughter. It's a soulish issue. And so she's saying, I would take your soul onto myself if you could have my soul so that you could live through, you know, and then everybody get away from me. So I think that it's... I had a lot of feelings about this song because the way I interpret it, I could be completely off, but I just think that it's like... And you're kind of, we can delete this if you want, but you're kind of in that situation where you have a parent and they're doing their best as far as what their own pathologies are. Let's say it that way. But a lot of times, unfortunately, it falls on the kid to basically manage their parent. You know, and so I just think that some people just have to realize it. You know, there's some parents who are never going to change.
Yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at with it. I keep thinking that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that
it's extremely painful, though.
You know, there's a story in the Bible where, you know, this kid Absalom, he does all this craziness, and then, you know, his father David, who's the king, sends him away. And then there's this very interesting script right before you go to the next chapter. It says, but every day the soul of David longed for his son Absalom. So I think that's one of the things that happens with kids and parents is that the parent doesn't know how to solve the problem. And the reason that Absalom was in the doghouse anyway was because his half brother raped his full-blooded sister. And so when it came to David, David was like, nah. He just took this real passive role. So then Absalom says, hey, I'm throwing a party at my house. This is like, I think 2 years later. Because his sister was wrecked. She was crying. And he basically told the sister, calm down. It'll be all right. Don't worry. You'll be all right. And then he's expecting that David is going to do some sort of punishment. And he doesn't even address it.
Right.
So then Absalom throws this party 2 years later. He's like, come on, everybody show up. And David's like, oh, I'm going to politely decline. You know, like, but all the brothers are there. And it's like, nothing goes into his mind where he's like, well, wait a second. This dude raped his brother's sister. And all of a sudden he's throwing a feast for him. Like, yeah. So anyway, they throw the feast. Everybody's there. And he pulls out his dagger and, you know, jukes the guy 30. He's dead. So he kills the rapist of his sister, but that also happens to be David's son. And it's obvious that David really didn't take women, like, very seriously. Like, that's obvious. And so he sends him away. But then it says the soul of David longed for his son. And I just think it's one of those things where, as a kid or a teenager, before you have kids, it's very, very simple. If my parents loved me, they would do X, Y, and Z. And that's not always the case.
Right, yeah.
Some parents just have a limit as to what they can change about themselves. So I think this song is important in the sense that, you know, like I said, I'm saying she wishes that her mother knew. But I do think there's a lot of estranged kids and parents where the parent doesn't know how to say, man, I love you to death, but I don't know how to handle this situation. And so I'm kind of stuck, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'm not hurt that you're hurt. It's just my upbringing, things like that. Like I just don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times parents will play the blame game onto the child, but it's not for the child, it's for them. Because if I can blame the child, that means I'm absolved of any wrongdoing. So I'm going to make the child carry the weight of that bullshit because I'm too scared to carry it. So I think that's bullshit. I think that's terrible.
I don't think that they think that like literally out. Like,
no.
I think that that's what's happening and they don't realize it.
It's subliminal.
Yeah.
It's the soul trying to protect itself.
Yeah.
But and that's why if a situation happens like that, you have to be extremely intentional. You can't let your soul dictate what's going to happen because the soul is always going to try to preserve itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of kids don't, and we've talked about that, with your situation where I was like, look, if he condemned X behavior, that would have a lot of ramifications. And so, he almost can't. But it doesn't mean the parent doesn't love you. It just means the parent has limits to what they can do. And, only God, especially from a Christian worldview, only God is going to be able to navigate those things right down the middle and feel the way he's supposed to feel about it and all that. And your parents are always gonna fail you. So this song just has so many. And then of course, when it says "sold her," right before the tape started, we were talking about this show on Netflix, and I'm not gonna watch it. I've had enough firsthand. I'm not going to call for Netflix's cancellation either, but I didn't have to see it to pretty much get a good lay of the land of what was happening because the outrage is univocal. Left wing, right wing, Tulsi Gabbard. Everybody's like, yo, what is going on here?
Right.
But that said, I said and the first time I thought this way was doing the R. Kelly documentary, where I remember being a kid and remembering that R. Kelly had this crazy reputation for underage girls and prepubescent girls or just young teenagers. I remember that clear as day. So everybody, by the time 1997, 98 rolls around, everybody knew what the hell R. Kelly was. But then these parents...
But yet he's still got access to more kids.
These parents sent their teenage girls with R. Kelly to his house for umpteen weeks at a time, and then they show up on camera and act like they're victims, that their daughter is now brainwashed by R. Kelly and in his cult and all the rest of it. It's like, yo, bro, where are you going to take some accountability? How the hell could you let your daughter be in that situation knowing that guy? So then now I'm at this, we're talking about this movie, and I'm like, what kind of parent allows their daughter to be featured in such a movie as an 11-year-old? But it's that whole sold her thing where sometimes children become these commodities that you can buy and sell, and there's unfortunately a lot of parents that are willing to sell their kid out. It's the same thing with the Michael Jackson situation. Dude was accused of all types of sexual misconduct with kids, and yet these parents are constantly sending their kid over to Michael Jackson's house unsupervised, sleeping in his room. You know what I mean? And every time I see one of these documentaries, I'm like, yo, you're not a sympathetic figure to me, parent. Your kid is. But to me, a lot of those parents sold their kids to these various people to be consumed so that they could get a lawsuit or whatever, or an in with a very famous person that you can translate into capital. There's so many things where parents are selling out their kids, and that movie to me is crazy. What I've been hearing from people is bananas. But here we are. This is the world we live in, where
know,
parents
oh, God.
you know, Netflix probably said, look, this girl's probably gonna make, you know, $2.5 million or whatever it is, and this is bound to generate controversy, so her name's gonna be all out there, and parents, oh sure, oh yeah, it's just acting anyway. You know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, that movie is gonna be around for the rest of that girl's life. So it's a pretty crazy situation. And
It's a movie or a show?
It's a movie. It's a standalone Netflix movie. You know, the interesting thing to me is like, and this is kind of something we actually touched on in the song. It's very, I said this in a live stream one time. There are, throughout history, women who work on selling other women.
Yep.
Like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like,
And you said it's a woman that's directing that.
yeah, it was a woman that directed that. You know, like, one of the craziest conversations I had with somebody was this woman is part of the Islamic State of Levant, and she was one of these people that was taking these girls and selling them in the market, literally. And that's part of the Sharia. You can't say it's not. Muslims, like, I'm not mad at y'all, I love y'all, but that is part of the Sharia. I mean, that's a fact. So, Abu Bakr did it, you know, Umar ibn al-Khattab did it, like, please miss me. Like, I don't hate Islam, but those are just facts. But anyway, like, she crowded those, I mean, she was the one watching the stable of women. And I was like, how could you do that? And she's like, well, they were gonna kill me. And I'm like, well, you should have died then. Like, at some point, you can't take part in something just because it's gonna save your skin. Mm-hmm. So I've always found it very strange that a lot of times in exploitation, women are part of, you know, the exploitation of other women. It's very strange.
Yep.
Would you give the song?
It's a little bit hard for me to rate this one, because if you're right, then I wouldn't even rate it. If I'm right, then I would probably give it like a 9.1.
I really like this song. I like the chorus. I like the guitar work. And the cadence that she was doing was extremely hypnotic.
Yeah.
Like, it's like very dreamy kind of.
I agree.
Very, very hypnotic sound. So I love that in the, like, that's one of the things I always try to figure out. Like, how can you make the verse portions, not just basically a holding place to get to the chorus. You know what I mean? Like, so they did really, really good where you were looking forward to hearing the verse, like there was a very, very good progression there. So it's gonna be a 9.6 for me. Very, very good song, powerful message either way. Shout out to all the women in the world. Stay strong, ladies. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.